Hello YouTube viewers, hope you're all doing good. Welcome to this video. I'm Venkat and this is just me an open source channel. In this video I'm going to talk about Elastalert. A few users asked me about how to include alerting feature in Elasticsearch. So you can either use the XPack alerting feature. So the XPack comes with a few extensions for monitoring, graphing, alerting, and so on. But that's a paid subscription. You have to have a license to use that. But although you can have a trial license, I haven't tried that yet. But there's a open source alternative for XPack alerting feature, which is Elastalert. So Elastalert is Python based, and we can use Elastalert to configure alerting. So whenever there are some events that you want to watch or monitor, like for example, say if you're looking for X number of events within an hour or two, you can say, for example, you're monitoring the SSH logins, and if there are some failed login attempts, like 5 or 10 failed login attempts in the last 10 minutes, then you can get notified about it. So using Elastalert has got lots of output plugins where you can send the alerts to. You can either email the alerts or you can send it to ServiceNow as a ticket. You can create a Jira task. You can send it to Slack channel of your choice. There are lots of output plugins, and we'll go through a few of them in this video series. So for this video, I'm going to configure Elastalert, and I'm going to deploy um, Elasticsearch and Cabana in Docker containers. So if you want to look at my previous videos, you can search my Elasticsearch playlist. I've done a video on how to install Elasticsearch and Cabana in Docker containers. So the Elasticsearch version I used was 7.1.1. Although I did a video previously with version 6.5.4, I recommend using the latest version 7.1.1. And then we will look at how to configure Elastalert. And then in this video, we're going to use the Slack output. So whenever there is some alerts, the alerts will be sent to the Slack as a web hook. So we'll go through this, how to configure your Slack channel if you're new to Slack, how to create a new workspace, and how to integrate Elastalert with Slack and so on. Okay, as usual, I've got my notes here for this video. So my host machine for this demo is the Dell laptop with 8 CPU and 16 gig of RAM. I'm running Manjaro Arch Linux. The kernel is 4.19. And I'm going to be running Elasticsearch and Cabana as a Docker container using Docker Compose. Elasticsearch will be listening on 9200 and Cabana 5601. You should be comfortable with these ports by now. And the version I'll be using is 7.1.1. And apart from the Elasticsearch and Cabana Docker containers, I'll also be creating a client virtual machine. Actually, I've got a client VM, which is an Ubuntu 18.04 machine with 1 CPU and 2 gig of RAM. So this is a VirtualBox VM deployed using Vagrant. So what I'll be doing in this virtual machine is I'll be installing Filebeat to send all the system logs, var log, syslog, and varlog secure, varlog auth and so on. All the system logs via Filebeats to the Elasticsearch. And then I'll be configuring, deploying Elastalert. The Elastalert will query the Elasticsearch, and depending on our alerting configuration, if it finds a matching events in the Elasticsearch, it will send the output. It will send an alert to the Slack channel. So that's what we will be doing in this video. So by the way, Elastalert, you don't have to install it on the client machine. It can be installed on any machine that has access to the Elasticsearch. So it's a standalone thing. It doesn't have to be in the ELK server or in the client virtual machine. Although you can install it anywhere. In this video, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to install it on the same client VM where I've installed the Filebeat. Okay, so that's the setup. And let's go back to the workspace one. And I've got this virtual machine here. If I show you the version, so it's Ubuntu 18.04. If you want to look at how to configure and install Filebeat, search for Elasticsearch 4, I think. Monitoring system logs and metrics in ELK stack. So In this video, this is a quite lengthy video, and in this video I've shown you how to install Filebeat, but I'll be going through this the same setup in this video as well, but I'll be going through it very quickly because all these concepts have been covered in my previous videos. If you want more details, you can follow my videos. Just search for Elasticsearch in my channel. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to deploy the Elasticsearch and Cabana Docker container version 7.1.1 using Docker Compose, right? Okay, so I'm going to clone my GitHub repository for ELK. Git clone https github.com/justme and open source/elk. cd to elk, cd to docker, and I've got two versions of Docker Compose. This one here is for version 6.5.4, and that's the latest version. So let me delete the old version, and I'm going to move Docker Compose version 7.1.1 to Docker Compose.yaml. That's there. And before I start the Docker containers using Docker Compose up, you have to remember that there is one important step, which is sudo sysctl -w. You have to set this parameter, kernel parameter, vm.max map count equals 262.144. Otherwise, your Cabana container will start, but the Elasticsearch container will fail. So you need to have this kernel parameter set. If you want to make this permanent, you have to add it to sysctl.conf or sysctl.d under any name of your choice. And then it will be persistent across the reboots. So now we are good to do Docker Compose up -d. So as I've already pulled the Elasticsearch and Cabana containers, you can see that it has started right away. Docker Compose Docker Compose PS. Okay, those are running. Docker Compose logs. Elasticsearch is starting up, and if you give it a few more seconds, it should be ready. State green. Okay, so now I think it's ready. Sudo netstat -nlcp. And we've got 9200, that's Elasticsearch, and 5601, which is Cabana. Let's access the Cabana dashboard. Localhost colon 5601. Okay, so that's Cabana dashboard loading up. That's cool. That's version 7.1.1. And if I go to the management, index patterns, we don't have any index patterns because basically our Elasticsearch is empty. So now what we are going to do is we are done with this setup. And now I'm going to configure Filebeat to send system logs to the Elasticsearch. Let's do that now. So how to install Filebeat on an Ubuntu 18.04 machine? Install Filebeat. Install Filebeat for the version 7.1. If you click that link, and I'm going to use the apt repository. So install Filebeat from our repositories. Apt. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it here. That's done. And install apt transport https package. Paste it. That's done. And we're going to add the source to the apt file. So okay, that's done. And finally, apt-get update and apt-get install Filebeat. Let's do that. Apt-get update done. Apt-get install Filebeat. So it's going to install Filebeat now. Okay, Filebeat is installed. Sudo systemctl status Filebeat. So let's enable it. Sudo systemctl enable Filebeat. Cool. So before starting this, we need to edit the Filebeat's configuration, which is etc filebeat filebeat.yaml. And I'm going to search for Cabana, and I'm going to uncomment the host file. So this is to configure the Elasticsearch host. Sorry, the Cabana host. So my Cabana and Elasticsearch is running on my host machine as a Docker container exposed to port 9200 and 5601. So my host machine's IP address is here, 192.168.1.81, 192.168.1.81. And if you scroll further down, outputs is Elasticsearch. So again, you have to change the IP address or host name of your Elasticsearch server. Again, it's going to be my IP address, 192.168.1.81. That's all it's needed. Sudo filebeat test config. So our configurations are okay. No syntax errors or anything. So now let's go and check if filebeat can talk to the Elasticsearch test output. Cool, don't worry about the TLS warning because our Elasticsearch we haven't installed. We haven't set up the Elasticsearch with the SSL with certificates, just a plain text. So that's the warning there. Don't worry about it. Talk to the server. Okay, so that's the important thing. It can talk to the server. Um, Address and the version is 7.1.1. Okay. So now we have to enable filebeat comes with lots of modules. If I show you sudo filebeat modules list. So there are no modules enabled at the moment, disabled. You've got filebeat for Apache, Audit the Elasticsearch, lots of MySQL, Nginx, and lots of different things. And there is a system module here. You can selectively enable whatever modules you want. Sudo filebeat modules enable system. So I've enabled the system module. By default, it's going to send all the system logs to the configured Elasticsearch server. But if you want to configure what exactly you want to send using the system, you have to edit etc filebeat modules.d, and you have got a file configuration file for all these modules. System.yaml. So enable this true, authentication is enabled. I mean, syslog is enabled, which is warlog syslog. Auth log is enabled, which is your SSH log. Warlog auth.log in Ubuntu, warlog secure in CentOS, Red Hat based systems. But if you want to search any particular path, you can uncomment this and you can give it as a list. For example, path 1, path 2, so on, if you want a customized location. Okay, I don't want that. Let's start that. So system is enabled. So now we got to do sudo filebeat setup. So what this is going to do is it's going to contact the Cabana and set up dashboards for this system module. Okay, filebeat setup command completed. So now the last and final step is to start the filebeat service. Sudo systemctl start filebeat, sudo systemctl status filebeat, just to check, and it's running, no problem. Okay, now let's go back to the Cabana dashboard, and if you go to index management, you can see here the filebeat log here. And if you look at the index patterns, you've already got the filebeat dash star. Okay, so now that means we've got some data in our Elasticsearch. So we can go ahead and do the discover now. Discover searching, and you can see all the data that's coming from the client machine, the Ubuntu machine, via the filebeats. Okay, cool. And let's take a look at now. Let's try and do something. Let's try and add a log entry manually and then see if it appears here. Sudo logger is the command, -t for program name. Let's say just me, and the message is, this is a message from admin, for example. Okay, that's done. And now let's go ahead and search for that here. Just me, refresh, refresh every 10 seconds. Yeah, there you've got it. So that's the log entry we've made, and from the client machine, FileBeat has sent this log to the Elasticsearch server, and in the Cabana dashboard, we can see that process name is the field name and just me is the value. And you also have the message. Where is it? Message is hidden down here. Yeah, message. This is a message from admin. Okay. Right. So that's working fine. And we have done the Elasticsearch Kibana and the client machine, and the FileBeat is sending logs to the Elasticsearch and Kibana cluster. Okay. So now we are going to set up Elastalert on the client VM. Right. So what we are going to do now is to look at the documentation for Elastalert. Elastalert read the docs or docs. So there it is, Elastalert easy and flexible alerting. And go to running Elastalert. But before that, I'm going to show you what are the available alerting options where you can send the alerts to. Rule types and configuration options, alerts. So that's the one. So whenever you configure to monitor the Elasticsearch, and whenever a pattern occurs, you can either run a command whenever that pattern occurs, or you can send an alert as an email or as a Jira task, or to SNS, Amazon SNS, HipChat, Microsoft Teams, Slack channel, which is what we will be testing in this video, Google Chat, lots of other options, or a default HTTP post. Okay, so these are the different types of output plugins that you can send alerts to. Let's go back to running Elastalert for the first time. So what we gonna do now? The requirements are you need to have the Elasticsearch server running with the data stored in it. So we've got that one, and Python 2.7. Let's look at the client machine if you've got the required version of Python. Which Python? No Python. Okay, so sudo apt get install Python. Okay, so we need Python 2.7, and we need pip, which can be done by installing this command Python pip and a few other dependencies. Okay, let's install them. Python pip, Python dev, and I'm also going to install one other package, which if you don't do, you might have some problems down the line. So py open SSL, sudo dufo, sudo apt get install -y, unable to locate package py open SSL. Okay, so py open SSL, no, it should be something similar, py open SSL. That's pip install. Okay, don't worry. Um, what you got to do is just install these. Okay, so we're gonna install Python pip, Python dev, and the couple other dependencies. Okay, so it's going to download and install all of them, and once that's done, there are a couple of ways you can install Elastalert. Either once you've installed the Python pip, you can install it. You can install Elastalert using pip install Elastalert. I've tried that, but it didn't work really very well for me with Python version 7.1.1. So I'm going to follow this procedure here. I'm going to check out the latest release from the Elastalert GitHub repository, and then follow this. Right? Git clone https github.com elb elastalert.git. Okay, so we've got all the dependencies installed. Now let's copy the GitHub link. Okay, git clone, if I copy it. Cloning to Elastalert, that's done. Cd to Elastalert. Okay, so here we are. We've got the Elastalert checked out. What's next? Pip install setup tools. Let's run that. That's done. Python setup.yaml. So before running this command, which is when you have to install PyOpenSSL. Otherwise, the Python setup.py install command would fail, but it might not in your case. But for me, when I tried before recording this video, I without installing PyOpenSSL, this command actually failed. Okay. Control C. Permission denied. This package is stc install. You said, oh, I see. What you have to do is you have to prefix sudo or pip install minus minus user, right? Sudo, let's do all the commands again with sudo privileges. Sudo pip install, requirements already satisfied, that's good. Pip install PyOpenSSL, requirements already satisfied, and Python setup.py install. Okay, so that's going through the setup now. Python setup.py install. Okay, so after that, we have to install the Elasticsearch module in pip. And if you're using Elasticsearch version 5.0, if your Elasticsearch server is running version 5.0 and above, you have to use this command. Otherwise, who's using Elasticsearch 2.0 nowadays? Okay, so since we have got Elasticsearch version 7.1.1, we're going to run this command here. Control C, copy this, and once the setup completes, we can run that command. Okay, the setup is complete now. Okay, now let's try and install the Elasticsearch 5.0.0. Paste that. Okay, successfully installed, so we are good now. And what else? So now next open up the config.yaml.example and we have to make some changes to the configuration. So the Elastalert configuration, you have to tell Elastalert where is your Elasticsearch and what port it's listening on. So that's what we're going to do now. So inside the Elastalert repository which you checked out, there will be config.yaml.example file. So I'm going to copy that to config.yaml config.yaml and edit that file. Config.yaml. So rules folder, where is your rules folder? If I show you ELS, example rules, so that's where all your rules are stored, the example rules. You can name it anything, but you have to change it accordingly in the config.yaml. So if I do example rules, so these are some example rules that they have got in their GitHub repository. We are going to use the example frequency.yaml rule for this demo. Okay, so that's the directory where you've stored all your rules. vi config.yaml. So that's the rules folder. Run every minute. So how frequently the Elastalert will query the Elasticsearch. So that's 1 minute, and the buffer time is 15 minutes. You'll come to know what that means. So here it is, Elasticsearch Host. So where is the Elasticsearch server located? Whether it's whether you can give it a name if you have got DNS or an IP address of your Elasticsearch server. So my Elasticsearch is running on my host machine, which has the IP address 192.168.1.81, 192.168.1.81, and the port is 9200. So those are the only two options that you need to change. Actually, one option, Elasticsearch host. Unless you've changed the port Elasticsearch runs on. So that's the only option you need to change in config.yaml. Nothing else. We don't have SSL enabled for Elasticsearch. Otherwise, you need to enable these options. Username and password, we don't have authentication for our Elasticsearch. Okay, so that's all it's needed. Now, um, we have to create an index now. Setting up Elasticsearch, creating an index, right? So if I go to Cabana and management, index management, so all you can see now is just the FileBeat index, which is the index that got created when we set up the FileBeat on the client machine. So there are no other indexes. So we need to create an index for Elastalert. The Elastalert, whenever it queries, it stores the results and the search things, everything in the Elasticsearch. Again, it queries the Elasticsearch. It also stores its own data in the Elasticsearch. So we need to create index for the Elastalert. So that's when you do this command, elastalert create index. Okay, so Elastic version 7.1.1, new index elastalert status created. So now if I go to Cabana and refresh index management, index patterns, index management, and now you can see all these files, all these indexes. Okay, so index for elastalert is created. So now creating a rule. Okay, so this is the interesting step and the important step. Please pay attention to it. So what we are going to do now is we are going to edit example rules and example frequency. So once you understand how the rules work, you can play with. There are lots of example rules in the example rules directory. You can play with it, and you can play with multiple output options. So for this demo, we are going to look at the example frequency.yaml, which means so whenever there is a number of events occurring in a certain amount of period, we want that to be alerted to the Slack channel. So that's what we are trying to do in this video, right? Okay, so what we are going to do, I'm going to delete everything that's not needed so that we can see what's important. Delete, 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 delete. Delete, delete, delete. We don't need that. Okay, so it's as simple as this. So this is how a rule looks. So the rule needs a name, example frequency rule. So I'm going to change that to just me or Slack demo. Slack demo. So that's the name of my rule. Type is frequency index. So we don't have a logstash index, but we do have the filebeat index, filebeat dash star. Right, so this Elasticsearch query, which index it should query. So that's the thing we are configuring here. So we've got filebeat. So filebeat is the index that we want to query, right? Number of events. So I'm going to change that to 3 events. So if 3 events happens within an hour time, then we need to be alert. We need to be alerted, right? Okay. So what are we trying to filter? What are we trying to look in the index? So that's where the filter comes in. But there are more options you can use. If I go to discover, let's say we want to filter these events. So whenever there is a log entry with the process name as just me and the message, this is from the admin. And if there are like 3 log entries within an hour of this type, then we need to be alerted. Okay. So filter term, there are different filters that you can use, and rule types and configuration options. Rule types, filters, that should be um, okay. Let's search for filters. Writing filter for rules, common filter types. Yeah, that's the one. You can use query string, you can use term. So term is the one we are using it here. So you can whenever you have some time, just go through this page, writing filter for rules. So there are different types of filters that you can use: pattern matching, regular expression, and all sorts of things, but we're not going to go too depth into that one. um, so term some field, so our field is going to be process.name, process.name, and some value, and the value is just me. So whenever there is a entry that matches this filter, and if there are like 3 entries within an hour period, then we will get alerted. So that's our idea. Okay, so how are we going to get alerted? So we're not going to use the email alert, but if you're going to use email alert, which I'll show you in my next video, the alert type is email, and the email is going to be who you want to send the email to. But in order for this to work, you need to configure an SMTP host, so that your host machine, um, or the machine where you are running the Elastalert, needs to be able to send emails, so which I'll show you in my next video. But for this video, we're going to look at Slack channel. So alert is Slack, and here we need to change this to Slack, and we can give Slack options here. Okay, so what are the options that we need to give for Slack if your alert mode is Slack? For that, if you go to rule type and configurations, alerts, and click on Slack. So the only required option is the Slack webhook URL, and there are other options which is optional, but I'll explain to you what they do. Okay, so Slack. What is a Slack webhook URL? So Slack, we need to sign up for the Slack account, and then we need to create a webhook. So we're going to post the alert to the webhook. Let's see how we can do that. Go to slack.com. I haven't got an account in Slack, so I'm going to show you everything right from the beginning. So click on sign in. No. Yep. Already using Slack. Try for free. Your email address. Okay, let's try this. Venkatan@gmail.com. Try for free. Find your Slack workspace. I don't have a Slack workspace. Create a new workspace. Check your email. Where's my email? Okay, I'm gonna pause it here, and I'm gonna check my email and write the 6-digit here. Okay, so I've got an email from Slack with the code 387367. 387367. Okay, so what's the name of your company or team? Just me and open source. Just me and open source. Click next. What's a project your team are working on? Elastalert. Okay. Who else is working on this project? I'm going to skip that. See your channel in Slack. Okay, so that's my Slack channel with just me an open source workspace. You can see that here. Elastalert, that's the channel we created. There is also a channel general and another channel called random. So this is my Slack workspace, and whenever there is an alert that matches this one here, we will get notified in our Slack channel, right? So that's the idea. Let's see how it works. To do that, we need to add the webhook integration. So go to Add Apps, search for webhook, and the incoming webhook. You need to install the incoming webhook. Add configuration. So post to channel. So what channel you want to post? Elastalert. Add incoming webhooks integration. Okay, so that's our webhook URL. Copy that and paste it here. Slack webhook underscore URL. is that one. So we have pasted that. I think that's the one. Slack webhook URL. Run Elastalert rule type configuration. Open in alerts. Slack. Yeah, Slack underscore webhook underscore URL. Okay, cool. So that's the right thing. Okay, so that's the webhook URL we need. That's the only thing we need, and there are a few other configurations that you can do. Go to the integration settings, post to channel. You can select which channel you want to post to. We've got Elastalert, random, general. Select whatever you want. So that's the webhook URL. Descriptive label if you want anything. Customize name. Incoming webhook. So this is how it will look like. The icon, you can change the icon if you want. Preview message. So this is what a message will look like. I'm going to change this to Elast alert admin, for example, and in your Slack channel you will get a notification something like this. So save settings. Okay, and close that one. And if I go to my Slack channel, you can see here added an integration to this channel, Elastalert admin. So now whenever an alert occurs, you will get notification in your Slack channel. Okay, let's say that. Okay, so that's all the rule configuration is. Save the rules configuration, and now we're going to test this rule and then run this rule as a Python daemon process, and it will constantly listen, and you will see in a minute that you will get the alert here whenever we do some uh, login trace. Okay, so go back to here, creating a rule. So now we're gonna test the rule. Elastalert test rule example rules.yaml. Okay, so now let's do a test. Elastalert test rule minus minus config.yaml example rules example frequency.yaml file. Okay, so as you can see here, 37, 52, 7, 22, 37. So that's the, if you can see here, it's a 15-minute interval, right? If I show you config.yaml, so that's the buffer time, 15 minutes. Okay, so zero hits, 1 hit, which is the hit that we just did. So that's the 1 hit. Okay, so that's running fine. And that's a test to see if your rules are working okay. And now how do we run it indefinitely as a daemon process? For that, running Elasticsearch, that's what you have to do. Python -m elastalert verbose. Okay, let me type that for you. Okay, Python -m elastalert dot elastalert verbose rule is example frequency dot YAML. You don't have to specify the example underscore rules directory because the config.xml contains where to look for the rules, because basically the rules folder has been set to example rules, so you don't have to define that. So that's all needed. I think you also need the config is config.yaml, but that's not required. Okay, so that's how you're going to run it as a daemon mode. Okay, cool. So now it's running, and it says the Elastalert is sleeping for 59 seconds, which is around a minute. So it runs every 1 minute because that's what we defined in our config.yaml. So it queries the Elasticsearch. The Elastalert queries for the Elasticsearch every minute for the defined pattern. Okay, so let's go ahead and run some. You need to play client vagrant SSH. I'm logging into my client virtual machine on a separate terminal. Okay, so discover let's create more entries. So our threshold is 3 entries. If we hit 3 entries in an hour period, then we will get that alert. Okay, let's do that. Sudo logger -t just me. This is message 1, message 2, message 3, message 4. Okay, so it has run it for the second time, and again it has found 0 hits. So we've done some more entries, and if I refresh this, you will see all the entries here. So we've done all these 5 entries in the last 1 hour. So the next run of the Elastalert, it runs every 1 minute to query the Elasticsearch. So the next run should find out all these 5 hits. So you can see 0 of 0 hits. So the next time it runs, it will pick up all these things and it will send an alert to the Slack channel, and then we can look at it in the Slack. Right? And this time you can see 5 of 5 hits. If I expand that, queried rule sleeping for 8 seconds, and that's the one. Queried rule Slack demo is the name of the rule that it queried, and 5 of 5 hits because we did the 5 log entries. And you can see here Slack demo sent to Slack. Okay, let's look at our Slack workspace. Cool. Elastalert Slack demo, at least 3 events occurred between. Okay, so that's how you integrate Elastalert into your Elasticsearch for alerting. Cool. Okay, so what else you can configure? Rule types, alerts, Slack. So that's the only required option, Slack webhook URL, but there are other optional parameters that you can set. Slack username override, and if you set that option in example rules, example frequency, you can set that option here, Slack underscore username override. You can set that to any user, and then on your Elastic Alert, the next alert, you will get the alert from the name. The name will be any user, so you can customize who is sending the post as what user, something like that. And there are other options, channel override. If you want to post it to a specific channel, you can do that. Icons, so that's the icon. Or you can change the webhook integration. In the webhook integration settings, you can change the icon. You can change uh, the user who is posting and all sorts of things. Okay, that's it I wanted to show you in this video, and maybe in my next video I'll look at the email alerting and few other alertings in the upcoming videos. And if you've got any questions or any comments, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to help you. Thanks for your time watching this video. As usual, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel, and feel free to ask any questions to me. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to ask you back more questions. If you ask the right question, you'll get the right answer, right? So thank you so much for your time watching this video today, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.